Hey flower friends, welcome to this week's DIY segment here at Flowers for Dreams. I'm Kyle and I'm going to be walking you through this really fun fall, I know, it doesn't look like fall, but it is a fall palette. Because October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we always try and incorporate some pink into the offerings of this month in particular. So today's arrangement is a fall pink sort of style. So I'm going with some really interesting foliages that will lend that fall appeal along with our pink florals over here, which I'll talk about in just a second. So for one, we're going to be working with smoke bush. Now this is, smoke bush is also called cotinus. So cotinus will actually get a really beautiful bloom on it, and this is the reason they call it smoke bush. It's a very airy, sort of fluffy looking cotton candy bloom. Generally, it happens in the early springtime, and then you don't see it after that. And once that's done, it's usually just sort of a dark burgundy foliage. So we're working with a dark burgundy foliage today to sort of add that moody base tone to our arrangement. Likewise, I'm balancing that out with some agonis. So this agonis is also a dark and moody little foliage that I love so very much, and I think it's just super fun this time of year. Now I know that there's going to be some substitutions this week based on availability, so some of you, instead of receiving the smoke bush, might be getting an Israeli ruscus, right? So this is basically the same shape and size and style of green, so it's just on the green side and it doesn't give us that same burgundy look. Likewise, I know that there is some 9-bark out there that is also just a burgundy foliage. It has a little bit more of sort of an edgy leaf to it, but it will still have the same sort of shape and style as this cotinus, so you'll use it in very much the same way. So just be aware that those are out there. So as you're greening your vases today, you'll have some substitutions, but just go ahead and apply those same skills that we've been working on this whole time, where you're really just building up that firm, greened up base with those stems crossing just like this, so that you're creating that grid for your floral stem insertions. Now, for our flowers today, there's one floral substitution out there that I know of. We have a white Veronica standing in for pink Veronica. So exactly the same flower, just a different color. So don't get tripped up on that. But if you do get the pink Veronica, I did recipe mostly a monochromatic pink-ish palette. So I went a little loud with the pinks. So we have, in addition to this Veronica, we have this hot pink Ultramaria Lily, right? This is also called a Peruvian lily sometimes. We love this for its wide array of colors that it is available in, as well as its longevity. So this is something that we use a lot. It's something that's inexpensive, so it helps fill a vase, it helps fill up some space, and it comes in every single color, like I said, so we really love working with Ultramaria. Then next up we have this purple Nexus Mom. Now I wanted to throw in a little bit of a plum tone. So we have these little hair nets on them, right? So this is how they travel so they don't shatter or get bumped, which we learned about our mums last week and the week before. So when you're taking this off, it's just a little hair net. Just be sure you sort of peel it off very carefully. If you go to tug that off, you might very well pop the head of your mum off. So be sure you're peeling that up over the top of the mum so you're not breaking that. Then you have this beautiful mum head, and as you can see, this purple Nexus is very plummy. It has a little red tone in it, which also lends itself very nicely to the dark pink palettes, but it picks up all the burgundy and darker tones of this foliage, so I wanted to put that in for a little bit of subtle contrast, so we have that in our pink arrangement this week. And likewise, my favorite pink rose, the Pink Floyd. Now this is a fantastic rose. It's got a lower petal count, but it does open really extremely well. It's got a mild fragrance to it. You're really gonna enjoy this rose. It's one of my favorites. You know, you can't go wrong with a Pink Floyd as far as I'm concerned. Has a great color punch. You can use it in about anything, so you're really gonna enjoy that one. So we're gonna start by greening up this vase in a single stem insertion method. So stick around and let's get started. So let's start with our greens. I'm going to begin with my agonis here. Now this is something that has a lot of laterals on it, you guys, so you can see we're going to be using a lot of different pieces of this. So if you have a really nice big piece like this, that's great. We're going to just crack that apart. You might have some smaller pieces such as these guys here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to sort of break those apart. I'm going to assess the pieces that I can use. I'm going to strip away the bottom foliage. So just get that garbage bowl over here and let's just sort of get our stems prepped. So I'm just going to work my way through this pile of agonis here. I'm taking tufts of leaves that are about the size of my hand or a little bit larger. You can see there my stem length is about 8 to 10 inches, maybe up to a foot. but I am just sort of assessing how much of the stem I can use all together. So you can see there's several different shoots of leaves here. I'm gently holding them all together. That way I can take my thumb and my forefinger on the lower portion of this and just sort of rip all those leaves out at the same time if I've got some tension on them up top. Then you can see below here I have a nice clean stem to work with. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just grasping all of those leaves. Then I'm beginning to pull downward with my thumb and forefinger. I'm just cleaning off that foliage nice and tight, nice and tight. So here we are. I've got this really big piece here. So I am just gonna go ahead and crack these apart. I'm just gonna peel off my laterals. So I'm just breaking these off. And then when I get up to the top here, I'm just gonna assess sort of what I'm working with and what things I'm gonna keep. So again, I'm just gonna crack that off there, I think. Maybe I'll stem separate that out of the middle of this, and we'll see. This looks like a piece that I can use all in one. So again, I have a bunch of laterals there. I'm just gonna gently hold those all together. I'm just gonna run my thumb and forefinger across all that, and I should be able to clean out a majority of my foliage if I just run my hand across that a couple of times. So you can really save yourself some time, guys, by just sort of grabbing the full mass at the top here, and then you can get all those leaves cleaned off at once. This is a way so you don't have to go through and pick off each individual leaf. So this is a good time saver. It's really gonna help you out in the long run, so don't forget this crucial step of cleaning. So here we are, we're just sort of assessing what pieces I can use. I'm just gonna take these lower ones off here, what the hey, and then I've got this great, or I guess I'm using Agana, so I should say what the A. So I'm just gonna have these great pieces here to utilize. I know it can be a little tedious, but just stick with it. It'll be over before you know it, and we'll be greening our beautiful vase here. So if you guys are no longer using the jar and you have a nice vase collection at home, I applaud you for that. This makes designing a little bit more fun. Sometimes the container really makes or breaks the look of something. So if you're working with other containers, that's perfectly great. I think that's wonderful. So here we are. I've got my piece here. I'm gonna just start by clipping my stem, right? We're going in at a 45-degree angle, so just insert that into the water like so, leaning this against the edge or the lip of your vessel. You can see that below the lip, I have no foliage, right? That's why we strip that off. We don't want any foliage in that water, because once that foliage goes into the water, and if it stays there a few days, that decay begins when it starts to grow bacteria. So you want to avoid that, and that's going to help the longevity of your floral, right? So here we are. I'm just going to continue greening my vase, doing these 45-degree angles. Look, my one foliage is really at the same. I'm going to have to edit that one off. So I'm just going to take that off so I don't have any foliage in my water. And I'm just gonna rinse and repeat, right? So I'm just sort of going around my vase, inserting at 45-degree angles. This one's maybe just a little bit short for this point. And I'm just gonna continue to lock my stems in together. You can see inside there that my stems are really starting to do this in there. My cameraman just had a little sneeze. Bless you, Carrie. So here we are. I'm just gonna continue to insert these stems just ever so lightly into this vase. Now see, there's really starting to lock in, you guys. You can start to feel the pressure and the tension of the foliages working against each other. So I'm just, again, I'm gonna hairpin right between some of those. You can see I'm just driving it in between them, and that way I'm creating that tension that's really gonna start to hold our floral stems in place, right? So I'm turning my vase every now and again just to get a different angle, because I might wanna get some of these little these shoots sort of coming out here on the sides. So I'm just utilizing as much of the aganis as I possibly can. So I'm just making sure that I'm filling all the space. Now, this is a really airy foliage, so it actually covers really well with not a lot of it. So I sort of feel like I'm almost at a place where I can stop greening my vase, but I have the material to use, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use it so I have a nice, dense, lush base for my floral. So I'm just gonna continue to sort of turn this vase around just a little bit, and that way I can sort of assess where I've got maybe some bald spots or places that I really wanna add a little extra touch of something. So this is where, you know, when you're greening up your vase, what you need to be thinking about is, you know, your final product, your end result. The greening process is probably the most important process of the entire design process, because it is from the greening that you're arrangement begins to take its shape. It begins to take its size and style. You know, all of its cues come from that greening process. So you want to be extra careful while you're greening to sort of make sure that you have a nice even base going here. Now, I maybe slightly intentionally made this side just a little bit higher because you know me, I do like a little bit of asymmetry in my pieces just to give it a little bit of a natural flair. But if you want to make yours nice and even and round, that's perfectly fine as well. So moving on to our burgundy foliage, we have this cotinus here, cotinus or smoke bush. I'm just going to go ahead and split the stem right there, making sure that my top piece is long enough that I'll be able to still use it. And then I've still got to use these foliages here. So instead of stripping all that, I'm trying to get a little bit more bang for my buck by stem separating these pieces, right? So then that way I can use the tips of both of them and get a little bit more coverage and only waste the foliage right in that middle zone there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give that a fresh cut, going in at that 45-degree angle. You guys, I'm gonna turn this so you can see that. Isn't that great? Look at how beautiful and burgundy that is. It sort of looks like a little marshland situation. Now with my final piece here, I'm gonna try and stem separate this so I get a bit of a longer piece of cotinus. I wanna just get that kind of up into the back here and my thrusty side. So you can see I have this little swoopy thrust over here. So I am just sort of going to make sure that this piece is a little bit longer as it's going in. Ah, look at that, it's sticking up. Now for this lower piece, I'm just gonna take this, and I've got a little bit of a bald spot here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and insert that in just to sort of balance out all my leaves. Now, I have a little bit of asymmetry happening, which I love. I hope you love it too. I think it's gonna add a really fun flair to the one side of my vase. Like I said, if you wanna do a nice even mass, it's totally up to you guys. I'm gonna go in with my Ultramaria Lilies next, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead, take off those leaves, just strip those stems, right? Here we got the thumb and our forefinger, we're just peeling it back, just holding it, peeling it back, and then once I have that done, I can go ahead, clip that stem, and I can add my Ulstro to my mix. So I am gonna sort of pay attention to my height on this second one just a little bit. I'm gonna make it a little bit higher as I go across the arrangement here, because that is also adding a little bit of depth in the height of the stems, right? If they were all at the same height, you would be getting a different style or look. So because I am adding this extra level here, I do want to be able to celebrate that. I do want to be able to really accentuate that. So this stem is a little bit taller than that one there. I likewise might probably do the same thing here with my Nexus Mom. I'm going to go ahead and remove the foliages, if you can see that. I'm just going to do that for both of them. Be careful not to pop the head off, you guys. You want to really try to be gentle around the top of these because you don't want to break them, right? So we'll just get those leaves off as best you can. I'm just going to maybe pet this open, but it will open on its own. Then I'm going to go ahead and insert my stem down here on this side of my arrangement. Now you can see it's really starting to take shape with just a few things that I have in here already. So I am going to go ahead and keep this stem a little bit longer. We're going in on the high side, a little bit more of a shallow angle. You can see I'm not going in at that full 45, you guys. This is maybe like more of a 25, but I'm getting it up, sort of up into the top there. So you can see we got this really interesting sort of stacking effect going on with my blooms, and that way it's not so boring. It gives it a little bit more of an architectural shape, you know. So here we've got our Veronicas, which I'm going to leave until last. I'm just going to step up these Pink Floyd roses. Now we've got some thorns on these bad boys, so be sure not to catch your hand on those. You don't want to put your hands on a rose and run them down because you might run into some thorns. So I am going to take the time to just go leaf by leaf on these guys, and that's going to reveal a few of these thorns here. Now cleaning off the thorns, if you have a knife, you can just run it against it. Otherwise, the easiest thing to do is put your thumb against the thorn and press it towards your finger, right? So if you just create a little tension there and you fold it to the side over the stem, you're just going to crack those thorns off, and then you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to go all the way down the stem because I'm going to cut that off most likely. So, you know, save yourself a little time, you know, just sort of assess what you really need to be cleaning here with the rose, and then you don't have to do as much work, you know. So here I've got a thorn here that's probably going to need to come off, maybe this one too. And I got one more rose to go, so I'm just going to go ahead and peel those beautiful foliages off. Now, the reason we take the foliages off of things like this, as you remember, is that one, the foliage takes energy away from the rose head, right? So if the stem is also feeding and hydrating those leaves, it's something that we kind of want it to only be doing for the head of the rose, and that is again providing us with a little bit more longevity along the way. So we remove those foliages just to sort of provide the rose head with the best possible survival rate. Also, foliages such as rose, they don't last, you guys. They really do dry up. They become necrotic. They don't look good in the arrangement. You know, if you have a really healthy rose foliage, maybe a few days you're going to get out of it, no more than 4. You know, and your roses should really last a little bit longer than that. Your roses should be lasting you about 5 to 7 days. Sometimes, in very rare instances, you'll see them go a little bit longer, but really that window of time is 5 to 7 days is about how long your flowers are going to last. And sometimes, if there has been some issue in the supply chain on the way there, your roses will sometimes fail on about day 4. So you really have to enjoy them while you have them. So we take that foliage off so we can have them around as long as possible. And then I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to give it a slight angle cut, you guys. So go ahead, you can see I'm exposing a little bit more surface area there with that angle, and that way it'll have a little bit more opportunity to take in water and hydration. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide that rose into that spot there. Isn't that fantastic? Look at the grades of colors there. Look at this hot pink against this purple. That burgundy foliage is just so really nice. I'm really loving what's happening here in my vase. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right down the center with this other rose. You can see I'm just sort of stacking it, so I'm softening up what's happening throughout the middle of my centerpiece here, or my arrangement. And then, as you can see, I have a very definitive hole on this back side, so I'm just going to go ahead, slide a rose in there, and call it a day. So isn't this fantastic? I mean, it's really rich in color saturation, just a really lovely sort of fall foliage piece that has those pinks in it, celebrating you know, the month of October, and especially with an extra special nod to breast cancer awareness. So what we need to do is we need to add in our Veronica still. So here we are. We got these 2 little pieces left. Yours might be white, mine's pink. I'm just gonna go ahead and remove the foliage. You can see that Veronica is one of those blooms that blooms up the stalk. So from the bottom here, it's gonna shed these lower ones first. So I just give it a little tickle to see if any of them are gonna fall off. You know, and if they do, that's great. You can just clean them off here on the table. And otherwise, you know, you can put it in the vase, no problems. You can just sort of see that I have a few that are shedding there. So I just wanted to avoid having to clean those up off my coffee table later in the week. So here we are. I'm just going to insert this Veronica. It's very playful. I'm going to leave it up a little bit high so I can see its beautiful tail just sort of dancing out above my agonis. And then here I'm going to insert my other one, just sort of face it the other direction, or you can face it the same direction. It's really up to you as the designer. So here we are. I've got this gorgeous Veronica just sort of playing up there in the top. Our piece is finished, you guys. I know you did a really fantastic job creating this wonderful fall pink display. You're gonna nail it. Thank you so much for joining me here at the DIY segment here at Flowers for Dreams. This is a really fun arrangement. It's got some really nice color punches. It's celebrating all the things I love about October. So be sure you're paying some special attention to those people that might be fighting breast cancer. Maybe you can gift this piece to them, or just raise some awareness in some way or shape or form this month. Until next time, my name's Kyle, and we'll see you back here at the DIY.